Hi, my name is Pam Nicholas. I am director over at Huntington Surrey High School, a small little accredited high school here in Austin. And I'm doing these videos just because I wanted to do something to help out parents who maybe are deciding to homeschool their kids due to COVID and not wanting them to come back. They don't, have a whole lot of confidence yet in homeschooling. So these videos are just to help those parents out. Um, I'm happy to take requests if there's something that you're interested in learning about, and I can do a short video for you, help you troubleshoot any of that. Today, I wanted to do more high school. My previous videos have been for elementary, younger kids. I've got a general one about project-based learning. Um, I've taught everything from kindergarten through high school age kids at this point. So I wanted to focus a little bit today on teaching literature and wanting you to see the process that we kind of go through over at our little school here. So we tend to go by, we use a combination of the TEKS and the National Common Core standards when we are putting together our curriculum. So what for language arts, I'm going to kind of focus on that today. So when we're doing language arts work, we first step was we came together and are still, we reevaluate. We're coming together, and I wanted to show you this little spreadsheet that we've got going here. So I'm going to do screen share. So we're on the quarter system at our school. So we broke things up by quarters. And let's see if I can kind of zoom in here a little bit somehow for anybody who might be having a little bit of a harder time here. There we go. So we broke things up by basically themes by quarter. So Q1, we wanted to focus on how people treat each other and interact and why. We do some curriculum for the kids, all of our kids at the beginning of the school year about teen brain, what is going on in their brains, why they might be a little more emotional, have a little bit of harder time making some, appropriate decisions for themselves, things like that. So every year at our school, we run through teen brain. So that's why I kind of included that in there. Coping, resilience, these are all things that we, want to have discussions about, especially at the beginning of the year to help prepare them for the rest of the year. Q2 is all about identity. That's the main theme for language arts program there. Q3 is societies and expectations. And then Q4, fun. So we give them a lot of choice as far as, just fun books to read. So here we've got broken down by grade level. We're still kind of working out this, but basically when you're, trying to homeschool and you're trying to figure out, think about what books, what classics do you really think, your child should have read by the time they leave high school. So that's what we did. So we kind of, look at these. We try to make sure we throw in some sort of Shakespeare in every grade level that we're hitting. So we just kind of think about classics and, pick some books that we're going to do and focus on. So for example, this year for the freshmen, we started out we looked at To Kill a Mockingbird, we did Animal Farm, and Societies and actually some of these books, Societies and Expectations, Animal Farm could fit in there too. Animal Farm could fit in any of these. So actually, sometimes the books are kind of can go across these areas, and you can talk about different things for them. But we next ended up doing Lord of the Flies. That's a fun one to do as far as societies and expectations. We also went ahead and we were looking at the Common Core standards. That's what this mess is down here. It's not formatted quite as what I would like it to be, but we were looking at the Common Core standards as far as writing. And so we paired sort of at least a minimum of one essay, one formal 5-paragraph essay for each of these guys here. Here for narrative writing, we expected a few pages of story writing, but for here, these are formal essays. So you can do the same thing, you know, pair your writing up with whatever novel you're reading. There are a million chances to write a formal essay when you are reading a novel. So so for example, so we took Lord of the Flies here, and we like to kind of integrate as much as we can with what the kids are learning in their other classes, just because if, you know, they're reading something and it applies to what they're learning in social studies, they make the connection and they retain that information. It sticks with them because they've got like a connection now. So having those connections really, really, really helps. So like, for example, in 9th grade, let's see, got the and when you're looking, I've mentioned in the other videos, Google's your best friend. So let's say I am looking to see, well, does that tie in with anything else that I'm going to be teaching them? You can look up here if you're in Texas. All you need to do is type in TEKS, and then what other, it's already popped up, what other, you know, what grade level you're trying to teach at. And you can see what standards the schools, the normal public schools, are going to be trying to hit, what they're trying to cover. So these are 9th graders. So I'm going to, what are the 9th graders doing in, you know, social studies? So I'm going to just type that in, hit enter, and it pops right up. You just click on this. And I know that the kids are doing world geography, so I can I can scroll through. There's US history. I can scroll through and to find my world geography. So I can do it. I'm going to do a Control F just to save time. So world geography, and there we go. Okay, so I'm in. And I can read through this. I know it seems like a lot. It doesn't take long to actually read through these. And if this is what you're doing that year, you can just, you know, select this, plop it into a new document and print it out, and then you can check off your list of what you're doing. So I'm just laughing because if I'm doing Lord of the Flies, like right here, this pops up. So analyze the human and physical factors that influence control of territories and resources, conflict and war. So you're hitting some of that when you're reading this novel. Students understand the processes that influence political divisions. Okay, you know, all these things you can kind of hit upon. Knowledge and skills is really where it kind of gets in this section C in any of these TEKs, the knowledge and skills. It's really what you want to kind of hit on when you're looking through the standards to see, you know, how can this tie in to what I'm doing here with my novel. So, you can look through and just see if something ties in, and then you can, like I said, kind of have a good thing, like, oh, remember in geography when we were talking about this? Do you see how this is now tying in? So anyway, so we'll always check. Biology, generally in 9th grade, kids are taking biology. So maybe you can look at, you know, why are there pigs on the island? You know, how do you think they got there? How do you, you know, what do you think, you know, what might change over time if they're living secluded? And, you know, you can get into natural selection. You can, all these different things, the same concepts, you can, as your lesson planning, try to tie everything in together, because again, it helps it all come together for the kiddo, helps it all stick. So so let's say, yes, I'm going to teach Lord of the Flies to my kids. So whenever you're doing a novel, I always start out with learning about the author. Um, you always want to do some background information, um, learning about the time, the era that that novel is taken place in, learning about the author. So I always want to, what I'll do is I'll do some sort of KWL chart. So it's a 3-column chart. The K stands for know, the W stands for want to know, and the L stands for learned. So always start these units out with, okay, well, let's, do you know who the author is of Lord of the Flies? No? Okay, so his name, is William Golding. What kinds of things would be important? And have your child brainstorm with you. What do we, if you don't know anything about him yet, let's leave that column empty. Well, he wrote Lord of the Flies, so I guess we can write that into that column. But you can print these out. KWC, it just pops right up there. So there's, lots of printables here that you can do. So what I already know about my topic, what I want to know about my topic, what I learned about my topic. So, I always have them do a KWL chart about the author. So we want to start out with, well, what kinds of things are important to know about somebody who's a writer? Let's think about it. Like, what kind of things can influence a writer and influence the story that we're going to read? And so the kids will generate ideas like, okay, well, what were the parents like? How was his relationship with his family? How, what was his education? Did he get married? Did he or she get married? Did they have kids? Where did they go to school? Where did they live? Were there any major wars during the time that they lived? So we'll fill out that KWL chart, and then I'll always start the unit off with having them find out and do research. We look at, again, this ties into social studies, we'll look at primary resources, secondary resources, and do some legwork. We'll also learn about the era that they lived in. So again, you're hitting social studies while you're learning a novel. We do that sort of background work first. You really want to build that prior knowledge. It's it's almost like, if you go to a museum, yeah, you see, okay, that's a pretty painting. It's much more interesting when you look at the painting and you have some background knowledge about it. Cool things about the artist, and it's much more meaningful experience for you. So it's the same way when you're entering into a novel with a student. So you really want to give them that background, and that way, they're going to enjoy it more. I always love teaching metamorphosis. And, when you learn more about the author and what a screwed up family he had and parents, and then you see the kids go, I see where this is coming from as they're reading. It's a really fun kind of moment for them to, make that connection on their own. So the other thing, go back to screen share here. The other thing, when you're reading a novel, this is a great time to build up those reading skills and those reading comprehension skills. So teachers are very, very familiar with this thing called Bloom's taxonomy. Basically, what Bloom said was there's a hierarchy of thinking and understanding and surface level versus going in deeper and using more critical thinking. So when we read novels, we really want to keep Bloom's, and we're asking comprehension questions. We really want to making sure that we are hitting the things in Bloom's taxonomy. So knowledge. So knowledge is just, so the first part is, remembering. So find or remember information. So those are very simple. I call them the right there questions. So, as you're reading this chapter, it's like, okay, who was in the scene? And they can easily go back into the book and say, okay, Ralph was there, Jack was there, and what happened in the scene. So those are basic sort of remembering. This is sort of the very surface level, kind of top, easy answer type of questions. Understanding. So this includes being able to, really summarize what happened, um, explain why it happened, infer things, well, I think Piggy said that because he's just upset because he got bullied before. It doesn't literally say that in the text, but you can infer it. So this shows a little bit of a deeper understanding. It takes a little bit more thinking is required than just pointing at a sentence saying it's right there. So these are understanding type of questions. Applying is where you use information in a new but similar situation. So, you can say, how do we apply, this interaction to maybe what's going on right now in politics? Again, that takes a little more burden on the brain to really kind of think of that and then apply that knowledge. Creating, using information to create something new. So, invent a new ending from what it was, or invent a, continuance of what happens. Evaluate and critically examine information and make judgments. So judge, test, critique, why did the author choose to put it there? Why is the conch so important? Analyzing, taking info apart and exploring relationships. So examine, compare, contrast, organize. How would you compare, Jack's leadership to Ralph's? Really analyzing things. So these are the types of things that as you are reading a novel, you want to be hitting these areas. And there's a bunch of tools here that you can go online just by typing Bloom's taxonomy. There's a lot of support out there. There's, just, question starters for each of these category. Find where this happened, these are great question starters. Now, if you don't want to go through all of this, whenever you're teaching these novels, it's already been done for you, essentially. There are a million lesson plans out there. Maybe I want to prep my kid for like the AP exams or whatever. So maybe I'm going to do like AP lessons on Lord of the Flies. And there's a billion lessons, a billion packets. Some of them, I guess, some of them are not going to be free, as in this, but some of them are, and you can just find this stuff and it's already there and done for you. There's different activities, there's different discussion questions, there are essay prompts, so they have things, for every group of chapters. It's already there for you. All you have to do is Google. So if you don't want to do it on your own, if you want to pull from, maybe you like, what they did here for chapters 9 through 12, but you want to do something from different, you can pull from multiple resources. The other thing that's really nice, because these things, when you're choosing the classics, it's been done already. You do want to, while you're reading, not only do the reading comprehension, but it's also a great opportunity for vocabulary development. And again, Google is your best friend, because I can just type vocabulary words for Lord of the Flies. There you go. Quizlet has pretty much everything for every one you want to do. And you can obviously customize it, because if you're reading this together, you'll know whether or not what words your child knows and what words they don't, and you can form vocabulary lists, as far as learning the vocabulary, they can obviously use Quizlet, but then I also make them use the vocabulary in their journal entries and in their writing. So, today I want you to talk about this, about Lord of the Rings, but I want you to use these words that we're learning in it as part of your, writing assignment for the day. So, you can also do things in a, project-based learning kind of way. So, maybe my goal is that I want you to not just only read it, but, I want you to write about it and, teach back to me, the main concepts of it. So, how you want to go about that is, up to you. Maybe you're going to do a diary from one of the characters of the story and, put in a project that way. Maybe you are going to be, doing a, pretending that you are a psychologist doing a symposium on all of this. And maybe you've done research and you realize that, the Lord of the Flies actually is, the opposite happened when a bunch of kids were on an island in real life. And here's a really cool article about how actually everybody got along really well and really took good care of each other. So, doing, maybe design your own social experiment, or maybe you're going to, pretend that the book happened on Survivor. And you watch some Survivor shows, and so there's different ways that they can do that. They could make, again, the island, again, another video I talked about, doing a Minecraft project, but make sure that there's some writing involved as well, because you really want to hit not just discussion, but at least give them some practice to do some organized writing, especially if they're in high school by now. I really recommend, 5-paragraph essays are your, best friend, because if you can do a 5-paragraph essay, you can easily turn that into a 10-page paper when you're in college. If you know the general format, I need an intro, I need as many bodies as I'm going to need, transition sentences between them, learning how to cite, all of that. You can, learn all of that in a 5-body paragraph, which is golden. So, again, I for writing, I go to Common Core standards. So, if I want to do a writing involved with my novel, I'm working with 9th grade, so I'm going to go to 9th grade and Common Core writing standards. And again, you'll find a million essay prompts on this that'll hit these standards. You don't have to come up with your own, but let's say I'm, curious and I want to maybe devise my own. So writing 9th, 10th grade, you can hit any of these things. So the main things for high school is they've got to be able to write an argument. So that can take the form of an opinion piece. So, you could ask them, a question, do you think, human beings really do have these tendencies, to fight this way and to behave this way? Or do you think that, people, it's, more, have better hearts than that, and so maybe they're going to write an argument and make claims. And so they're going to introduce, no, I think people are better than that. And here's why, because in real life, blah, 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 this happened. Some people, they say, well, that's only one situation. Maybe it would happen differently in other places. And so, and then, they could counter that. So, they can write an argument about this and do their 5 paragraphs essay hitting this standard. The other main standard here is writing informative explanatory text to examine and convey complex ideas. So, I'm going to explain to you why this is what I think the theme of Lord of the Flies is. And so, so maybe they're going to do that and back up their claim here, establish a formal writing style. Maybe they're going to write a narrative, and so make up a narrative based on the same idea. Or they're going to do a continuation, a part 2 of this, or maybe they're going to do a prequel, so any of these you can hit with any novel and get that writing practice in. So that's basically how I teach a high school novel. It's a lot of fun. The kids, really, really, they love getting into discussions about things. You know, what do you think about this character and why? And, you know, I like to ask a lot of, this kind of plays into the AP stuff a little bit about why do you think the author wanted to do that? You know, do you think it was subconscious? Do you think they really, you know, put that in there and put that symbol in there because they were, you know, or that motif in there because they were really trying to get this theme across? You can get into really deep, interesting, you know, discussions with the kids about this. The other thing we do at our school is we also work in our literary terminology vocabulary. So when we're talking about the, you know, we use these words all the time, you know, theme, you know, oh, look, there's some automatopoeia there. Oh, you know, do you notice how the repetition that the, you know, the author's using repetition here? Okay, symbolism. This isn't, you know, this book is clearly an allegory for, and so, you know, give them a few literary terms. So as you're, you know, reading the book, like, oh my gosh, this is just, you know, a perfect example of this. As you're reading it, stop, talk about it, have the kiddo do a, you know, Quizlet card on that literary term. So this is where everything just, you know, so that way they're learning them along with what they're reading, and they're analyzing, and they're thinking. I found it great. This was a nice one. I think it was, you know, literary terms. There we go. Every high school student should know. And so this is really nice. It gives examples for you. So if you forgot what it means, it's right there. So, you know, maybe you're going to be like, okay, we're really going to be on a hunt for some alliteration and an allusion, and, you know, some anthropomorphism today as we're reading. So, you know, you can kind of just pick these terms, and it's a really, really nice list here. So that is what I do when I teach novel. Hoping this is helpful to anybody who's new to homeschooling. I'm sure those of you that have been homeschooling know all this already. But, you know, maybe there is something good in there for you. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at info@huntingtonsurrey.org, and I'm happy to help out in any way I can. Thanks. Stay safe and happy, and